Okay, so I'll be honest. I was debating whether to even touch this movie the second it was announced. From the trailer alone, it looked bad. Like, close the tab halfway through the preview bad. I figured it wasn't worth my time or yours. And if I did watch it, it would just be another forgettable flop no one cared about, and I'd be shouting into a void that already agreed with me. And in a way, I was right. Sort of. Yes, the movie's bad. Yes, it's deeply uncomfortable to sit through. But here's the part I didn't see coming. I was actually captivated by some of it. There are moments here that, dare I say, are genuinely solid. I went in expecting a train wreck destined to vanish in 2 weeks. Instead, it ended up trending on Netflix, top 10 movies, and that's not nothing. And the name attached to it? Genndy Tartakovsky. Yes, that guy. The mind behind Dexter's Laboratory, or Laboratory if you're fancy, Samurai Jack, and Primal. The guy who directed the first 3 Hotel Transylvania films, a career stacked with stylish animation, family-friendly hits, and now this.
Oh, Nana! How many times have I told you to stop, Nana?
This movie, though, definitely not for families. Honestly, I wouldn't even recommend it to my closest friends or even people I actively dislike. It's uncomfortable, painfully unfunny in stretches, and seems wildly unsure of who it's actually for. It's as if after years of wholesome family projects, he finally got the green light to go raunchy and went all in. And before we dive in, I want to be clear about something. I went into this movie intending to give fair, honest criticism. I am not here to blindly bash a project because I personally didn't enjoy it. As I said both on Twitter and YouTube, I think that it's important to give fair criticism about the movie without delving into quote-unquote look at Genndy Tartakovsky's hard drives. Make your opinions based on the movie itself, please. There's plenty to say about this movie without insulting the people who worked on it, no matter how you feel about the topics mentioned. That is the approach I'm taking here. I think it's important for artists to make their work and be judged on that work without people jumping to wild accusations. The history behind this film is fascinating, and the intent seems pretty clear. Make people laugh. Now, whether it succeeded at that is another matter entirely. Anyways, for those who haven't seen any of the trailers yet or just weren't interested in them, let me give you a quick plot synopsis. After humping the leg of the family's grandmother, Bull's family is now trying to get him neutered. When he finds this out, he runs away from home to have a final wild night with his friends. And this, of course, is just a bare-bones synopsis. There's a lot more to it, but we will get into all of that in a bit. Right now, I want to zero in on one thing. This movie is disgusting. My biggest problem is that it's aiming for gross for the sake of funny, but lands squarely in gross for the sake of gross. There's a razor-thin line between those two, and very few creators can walk it without the whole thing tipping over. This one just swan dives straight off. It's hypersexual, uncomfortable, and at times just flat out awful to watch. For over half the movie, I found myself holding my hand over half the screen because I was tired of seeing a dog's butthole framed like it was an essential supporting character. And yes, there are far too many buttholes here. It was so disgustingly awful I had to pause, take a 20-minute break, and then 10 minutes after starting again, take another 20-minute break. But I'm not here to only tear this movie apart. Thankfully, there are positives. I genuinely love the character designs, especially the bit where dog owners walk into the dog show looking exactly like their dogs. That kind of visual gag will always get me. And the characters themselves are wonderfully expressive. Certain animation choices work beautifully, and some of the cinematography genuinely stunning. The background art can be gorgeous. And the scene with the cats and their almost henchman-like accents were great. And the fact that it's all in 2D, in an era with endless 3D releases and live-action remakes, that alone felt like a fresh of breath air. Of course, some of those strengths come with baggage. Yes, the animation is excellent, but that also means that some of the most uncomfortable, gross moments are animated really well. And the filmmakers seemed oddly determined to showcase Bull's assets. Like every opportunity they had to show them off, they took it. Even one of the prettiest scenes in the film has two dogs humping under the moonlight, which honestly made me appreciate the beauty of the backgrounds even more. If only because it meant that I wasn't staring at a dog's butthole again. And now we get into the full breakdown of the movie. Yes, I will be giving my opinions throughout this whole section, but for now, I will be giving a spoiler warning for the next section of the video. Now, feel free to skip to this time right here for the final thoughts. Of course, that also means you'll be skipping a lot of this video, but hey, I don't judge. The movie opens up with Bull being adopted by his new family. He's adorable, sweet, tiny, with that universal precious puppy look. And then, almost immediately, we get a 2-minute uninterrupted scene of him humping random objects. This is where I took my first break from the movie. Once Bull finally makes it outside, we meet the love interest, Honey, a purebred show dog borzoi. I especially loved her design, and clearly the animators did too. Like the rest of the cast, she's wonderfully expressive. She tells Bull to stop pumping the grandmother's leg, while dropping hints that she'd rather be with him instead. And somewhere in there, the movie also squeezes in a jab at British people, which honestly, I'm never gonna complain about. Anyways, when Bull gets called to the park, suddenly every other dog shows up at the exact same time because they all need to use the bathroom. And my god, this joke wears thin fast. By the fourth dog announcing that they had to pee, I was already over it. The movie also suffers from the same problem as A Million Ways to Die in the West.
And, you want to see more death? All we got to do is get up and walk out the front door.
That is our mayor. He is dead. He has been lying there dead for 3 days. No one has done a thing. Not moved him, not looked into his death, not even replaced him with a temporary appointee. For the last 3 days, the highest ranking official in our town has been a dead guy. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Wolves are dragging the body away as if to illustrate my point. Bye! Bye, Mr. Mayor! Bye! Have fun becoming wolf shit! Bye! God!
Characters overanalyzing everything they do, picking apart tiny non-issues. Dog shows, chasing a ball, even owners picking up after them. It's all treated like a deep existential debate. Now, I've never really liked writing like this because it's such an easy, lazy shot to take. The reality is, dogs don't care about any of that. They're not sitting around asking themselves why they chase a ball, they just do it. And they're definitely not pondering the social implications of someone picking up their crap. But here, every dog is given human neurosis and overthinking, which ends up making them feel less like dogs and more like people in dog suits. As Bull heads to the park, we meet his 3 friends. Rocco, a boxer voiced by Idris Elba, Fetch, a wiener dog voiced by Fred Armisen, and Lucky, a Jack Russell Terrier voiced by Bobby Moynihan. Oh, and before I forget, Bull is voiced by Adam Devine, while Honey is voiced by Katherine Hahn. A star-studded cast, really. Rocco tells Bull to stop humping Granny's leg and to just get with Honey already, but Bull insists he's not into show dogs. Then Fetch shows up, and honestly, his design might be my favorite of all the pets. He walks on his hind legs and dresses like a human, and when the others ask what the hell's going on, he explains that he's blowing up on social media, so he's leaning into the more human than dog gimmick. And finally, there's Lucky, who's eating something that is very much not a chia and flaxseed energy bar. This is another moment where I had to take a break, because at this point, the movie was starting to make me physically ill. They finally make it to the dog park where they run into Luther, wearing the cone of shame. He's just been fixed and describes the day before as the best day of his life, which apparently included drinking Kool-Aid out of the toilet. And this is where we also meet Sterling, another show dog borzoi, played by Beck Benet. He is the film's antagonist, and they make him as obnoxiously douchey as possible. And I'll admit, there were moments where I actually enjoyed his character. Sterling no longer considers Luther a friend now that he's been castrated. He starts mocking the rest of the group, which prompts Bull to stand up for them, because, at least for now, he's still intact. Bull actually fires back by tearing into Sterling over his inbred lineage. Then we get a scene of 2 dogs just going at it. Right after, Honey comes in and claims that humans are just as obsessed with sex as dogs are, and as someone who's demisexual, I can confidently say hard disagree. Anyways, Honey spots Sterling, who starts laying in on the compliments, telling her that she could easily win Best Bitch, which in this instance is a good thing, since it means that she'd have a litter with the best of breed. And why does this matter? Because, as I mentioned earlier, Bull and Honey are the love interests here, and the situation does not work in his favor. In fact, I'd say it comes back to bite him in the ass later. Well, sorta, but we'll get to that when we get there. Of course, Honey isn't even remotely interested in Sterling, and she clearly prefers Bull, and it's obvious to everyone, even Sterling calls her out on it. Back at home, Bull suddenly gets bombarded with affection, steak, and even drinking straight from the toilet, Kool-Aid included. And that's when it hits him. He's next on the chopping block. Or more accurately, his balls are. So, Bull decides to run away. But first, his friends show up to comfort him, though he still manages to insult them while complaining about being fixed. After they leave, Honey appears to remind him that she has a show that night, and when she's gone, Bull realizes that his family doesn't truly love him. So, he tosses a collar and roams the city streets as his own dog. And what's first on the agenda? A food festival where he devours human food like some sort of furry trash can. Then he stumbles in on a car baking, with oregano as the main ingredient. He inhales the smoke, gets high, and hallucinates Honey professing love while wanting to lick the very stones he's trying to save. During a brief moment of lucidity, however, he's actually being chewed on by rats, and in his extended hallucination, believes his balls have abandoned him. When he chases after them, side note, the set design and cinematography here are genuinely gorgeous despite the context. Anyways, Bull runs into a cat who appears to be holding them captive. Once he shakes off the hallucinations, he realizes the cat is actually just guarding a tennis ball and a ball of yarn. These cats quickly became my favorite characters, hands down. I love the henchman vibes that they give off, and the moment that the kitten shows up with the same accent as the other cat but just higher pitch genuinely made me smile. But as all the cats prepare to tear Bull apart, suddenly a paw intervenes. It's Rocco, Lucky, and Fetch, all here to save the day. As the cats start meowing, the sound hypnotizes the four, making it tough for them to escape, but thankfully they do, and what follows is a classic chase scene as they make their getaway from the feline henchmen. After finally being free, Rocco and the other dogs suggest that Bull should have one final night to do whatever he wants before getting fixed, since they never got that chance themselves. And the first thing they do together? Chase a squirrel. Now, as I mentioned before, this movie is really gross for the sake of gross, and they get very graphic with that squirrel. While it's not quite on the same level of Brian killing a squirrel in the Family Guy episode Boys and Squirrels, it's still pretty unsettling and visually detailed. Speaking of gross and graphic, this next bit is no better. Lucky spots another squirrel and immediately goes for it, only for it to be revealed that it's a skunk that sprays him straight in the eyes. I have to say, there was absolutely no reason for this scene to be so well animated, but it looks fantastic anyway. Once again, the 2D style really shines here. There's no way a 3D version of this would even capture such a clean, expressive animation. Actually, a small tangent, but I really appreciate how often the animators break the models, especially with Bull. You can tell that they had a lot of fun working on this movie, which shows in the results. The good, the bad, and the truly ugly. Anyways, after killing the squirrel and getting sprayed in the face by the skunk, the dogs move on to more rule-breaking antics, even releasing another dog from her purse. But literally the next shot, spoilers, that dog gets ran over. And speaking of getting ran over, Bull is suddenly hit by a car. Defying the rules of the previous scene, he ends up on the windshield of the vehicle that belongs to none other than Honey's owner, who's en route to the dog show. Bull tries to make his love confession then and there, but barely misses his chance, ultimately making him depressed. Suddenly, a scent leads them to the very dog show where Honey is performing. And of course, since they're dogs, they can't just stroll in, so they pile into a trench coat, with Lucky taking the top because he can say one human word.
Oh, hi. How's it going?
Another moment that genuinely made me smile. But that smile quickly fades when they mention that it shouldn't have worked. For some reason, having the movie tell you that the joke didn't land just ruins it for me. Another thing I dislike is when the show gives dumb characters sudden smart or philosophical thoughts before reverting to their usual dumb selves. I personally never liked that trope. It basically tells you this dumb character was just faking it all along. It's not funny and makes them even less amusing later when they go back to being clueless, or in this case, dumb. That joke would have landed much better at the end of the movie when you have nothing else to compare it to after it happens. Anyways, once they're inside, we get a peek at the life of show dogs. The pressure, the performance, and the stress it causes. The Borzois go up next. Sterling wins Best of Breed, and Honey wins Best Bitch. Also, somehow, Rocco ends up switching places with the show dog of the same breed because the owner mistakes him for her own dog, which doesn't even make any sense since their colors are completely different. Rocco's even has his name on it, and the other characters get close enough to see it, but whatever, let's just roll with it, I guess. Honey realizes that winning makes her feel unremarkable. She just looks like all the other dogs in the category. She begins to realize that she doesn't want to be like all these other dogs. What she really wants is Bull. Aww. But since Bull sees her win, he feels like he's lost his chance and sinks further into depression. The other dogs try to help him by overhearing a conversation about an after party, trying to cheer him up and give him a new sense of hope. It's obviously not working. And the next scene is a huge part of the problem with the movie. It shifts from dogs just living their lives to suddenly adopting a ton of human characteristics. A perfect example, they end up at some sort of sex club specifically for dogs. And they don't play it cheekily. This scene is exactly what I mean. On the surface, it's somewhat silly, a tiny dog giving commands like some sort of fluffy dominatrix. But that's the problem. They lean fully into these human traits, making it easily the most uncomfortable scene in the movie. Also, if you're paying attention to the video, you're probably wondering where Lucky went. Well, he meets another dog named Frankie who is intersex, and they end up doing their own thing for a bit. And Lucky isn't the only one meeting someone new. Bull does too. But this part is very uncomfortable, so I will skim through it very quickly. He meets another Borzoi named Molasses who tries to seduce him, but he's really not interested. Suddenly, Honey walks in on the two of them, and she's understandably hurt by what she sees. Now, before things can get too dramatic, the whole place is raided by dog catchers, with Frankie, Lucky's newfound partner, being one of the few dogs who manages to escape. Now at the dog shelter, this is supposed to be the all is lost moment, where Bull realizes he genuinely hurt Honey and it's all his fault, with his friends even agreeing. One of the dog catchers spots Honey, saying that she is very clearly a show dog. He then checks her chip and calls her owner, who arrives the next day to retrieve her, claiming that she has a big play date with the winner, Sterling. Bull quickly pieces it together. If Honey goes through with this, she will be getting it on with Sterling, wiping out any chance that Bull has. That's when Bull comes up with an awful plan. Okay, so I mentioned earlier in this movie that it tries to be gross for the sake of comedy, but really, it's just gross for the sake of gross. And that, my dear viewers, is no different in this scene, because when Bull tells the other dogs about some fountains he saw in Las Vegas, to get the guards to let them escape, they all lift their legs in unison and pee all over them like a truly horrifying water feature. I cannot wait for this video to be done so I can never think about this movie again. Holy fuck, man. But I will say, it's visually hilarious how far Rocco's paw stretches in order to grab the catcher's keys. Squash and stretch is one of my favorite things to see in any animated movie in the 2D style. Anyways, he gets the keys, they play hot potato until Fetch ends up with them and opens the cage, releasing all the other dogs while ignoring the cats that were also captured. But it was still nice to see the cats again. They really are the highlight of this movie. Now, with all the dogs running loose again, Bull finds his way back home after seeing a missing dog poster from his family. There, he sees Honey about to get it on with Sterling. Bull tries to stop it by running into the fence repeatedly. After about the 6th attempt, Rocco finally decides to help and Bull ends up on Honey's back, taking one for the team, as one might say. Once that's all done, the other two tell him that it was inspirational. And if you're wondering where Lucky went again, he was off looking for Frankie before finding them again. Bull returns home and his family is thrilled to see him, but in the middle of the night, Honey shows up at the back door and meets Bull on the playground, where she finally confesses to him. They agree to be together before doing it themselves. The next day, Bull has to get neutered, and this scene is oddly poetic, showing Bull and his stones running through a field together, playing in the snow, and finally leaving him via train. And then there's a time skip. 2 months pass and Bull is fully healed, walking through the dog park before meeting up with his friends and Honey, who brings along their puppies. Sterling, of course, is confused because they don't look like him, and then he ends up getting fixed as well. Maybe karma was the bitch he was looking for this whole time. Bull is then tasked with watching the puppies while Honey and her friends go out for a wild night. And I hate this scene so much because it's way too well animated. Like, unironically so. Oh my god. And that's the movie. It's raunchy, it's gross, it's often really unfunny, but it does have a lot of good in it. Yet, not enough to earn an overall positive review from me. It's a shame because this could have worked so much better if it had just let the dogs be dogs and cut out most of the human characteristics. Instead, it made the whole experience painful and uncomfortable to watch. With that being said, this genre does have its place. It's art meant to make people laugh, to make people talk, and the raunchiness is the whole movie's defining trait, refusing to let go until the very end. But there's a right way to do this. Another movie in the same vein is Sausage Party. Oh my god, I can't believe we're talking about Sausage Party. Like Fixed, it's raunchy, rarely funny, and sparked controversy when it came out. Yes, the comparison may seem odd, but hear me out. In Sausage Party, a group of supermarket products led by Frank the Sausage discover the horrifying truth about their fate. They're not heading to paradise, but to gruesome consumption. Frank tries to expose the truth, fighting those who cling to ignorance and a vengeful douche along the way. Now, Sausage Party isn't perfect either. It's very of his time, as one would say.
I gotta tell everyone.
No one will believe you.
I have to try. Everyone will die otherwise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Fuck me, right?
But there are parallels, especially in the romantic subplot and how the characters want to be together in the end. Sausage Party succeeds over Fixed for two reasons. First, the sexual tension is handled cleverly. The characters barely do anything overtly lewd, yet it's still funny and played off as if they fully did it. The raunchiness is relatively subtle until the infamous ending scene. Second, the overall plot. Fixed is very simple, focusing on one character and his personal issue, whereas Sausage Party explores the world and the larger conspiracy around it. Of course, the worlds are set up differently. Fix is grounded in reality but with cartoonish humor, while Sausage Party mostly stays in the store. Also, one last complaint about Sausage Party: why the hell isn't it in 2D? It would have been infinitely more enjoyable, but whatever. Anyways, all of this to say, Fixed has a right to exist, even if I personally find the topics and jokes here uncomfortable and unfunny. It isn't for me, and that is fine. And if you enjoyed it, feel free to tell me your favorite part of the movie down in the comments below. Thank you for listening to my critique of this movie. I was really going back and forth on making this video for the first 24 hours after the movie came out, but since you're watching this, I clearly decided it was worth talking about. This movie isn't a mistake or anything. That is far too harsh, and I will always enjoy animated movies because they have some solid qualities, especially because it was directed by one of the best animated directors of our time. I just don't see myself pulling up that movie and watching it unprompted in the future. Anyways, that is all I have to say, and if you got this far, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to watch this video. I have a lot more like this on my channel, so feel free to check it out. South Park is currently running a new season, so majority of my videos will be about those episode breakdowns. I also have a video coming out in October talking about another movie that I've been excited to talk about for a bit, so I should really get back to work on it. Plus, a King of the Hill revival related video sometime soon, so ring the bell to get notified for when all these videos drop. I also have a Patreon where I post most of my updates for free, as well as some videos that may get copyrighted due to the content. I also had the uncensored version of this video on there too. It's all completely free, so feel free to check it out. Anyways, that's gonna be all from me this time. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you next time. And don't forget to stay animated.